Well, he's right. Like, we wouldn't even be talking about Jalen not playing well if A.J. Brown hadn't brought it up.
Twice.
Right. I mean, well, once.
Once,
maybe.
yeah, sure. Once definitively,
right.
and once maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Jalen, I'll give you some stats that are impressive with Jalen Hurts. 4th in the league in yards per attempt. Okay. That's an important stat. You guys know that. 8.0 per attempt. 5th in the league regular season in passer rating. 103.7. 5th. All right? He's only got 5 interceptions all year. Only Lamar and Justin Herbert that's among full-time starters threw fewer interceptions. And then he's won 11 straight games, and 5 of those were against playoff teams. Oh, and he's got 14 rushing touchdowns, which is more than any quarterback, including Lamar and Josh Allen. And they're winning. Like, when you're a running quarterback and not a elite passer, which that's Jalen, your numbers aren't going to look great. These numbers are similar to his numbers 2 years ago when he was in the MVP conversation. He was throwing for more yards per game.
Yeah.
He's throwing for about 50 yards more per game. But that's significant. I get it. But touchdowns, he only had 22 touchdowns.
No,
he's got 18 now.
It's the yards per game.
It's the yards. So I think they should do what they do, which is run the ball and he throw the ball opportunistically.
That's fine.
Sure.
That I got no problem with. I have a hard time believing or agreeing that his stats are actually pretty good when his coach just said, I know his stats don't look good. Like, maybe if his coach,
other than the yards per game, what doesn't look good?
Well, I think
he hadn't thrown for a ton of touchdowns. They don't throw them.
So here's the thing. If you were to not have watched football this year and someone were to present you like, hey, playoffs have started. Here's one of the teams that can win the Super Bowl. If they don't, what do you think the reason will be? You'd look at this and be like, oh, well, it looks like they struggle passing and they're awesome at everything else. I mean, they are in the top 10 offensively and defensively in everything, and in the top 1 or 2 in rushing, pass defense, total defense, scoring defense.
Okay, I'm going to let this clip play, but I got to interject real fast because this is so absurd. Because the way how the offense is run and the way how they're able to be so dominant in other aspects of their game, it's going to take away some of the passing. That's just the reality, okay? And you know who had that same mindset and thought this is a bad thing? The GM from the New York Giants. We're not going to pay a quarterback $150 million to hand the ball off to a running back. How'd that work out? Yeah, that's what I thought. So just stop. It's like Brew wants to say, hey, here are these stats that actually show that Jalen's good. And he's like, nah, those stats don't show that he's good. Look at these stats. These stats prove that Jalen Hurts is not so good. What are we doing here? Seriously, what are we doing here? 1 + 1 = 2. Nah, maybe, but not necessarily. 2 + 2 = 4. I don't want to hear your 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 4. It's like, okay, huh? What I keep saying this. What are we doing here? Seriously, what are we doing here?
And then they're 29th in passing.
If they're 8th in total yards. And Jalen Hurts has got the ball, and he's adding to both sides of that.
Right, but 8th usually isn't good enough to win, right? Like, we're down to 8 teams, and so, and we think it's mostly the best teams. I don't think, I understand what Sirianni's doing, and I respect him for defending his quarterback. He probably should have just taken a page out of Kevin Wilde's book and been like, by my stats, the only stat that matters, he's great. We lost twice with him.
11-0 his last 11.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he should have said, but regardless. But, I mean, to me, Greg, like actually, Jalen Hurts is playing great, which I'm not saying is what you're doing, Brew. It's like borders on gaslighting. Like, no, he's not. He's been fine. Jalen Hurts has been fine. The rest of the team is excellent. And I think most people believe if the Eagles don't reach the Super Bowl, it will be because they can't go toe-to-toe in the passing game with either the Rams this weekend or Detroit next weekend. Like, that's the concern, and that's the standard. Like, if you're an S-Bob team, that's the standard.
And I agree. Like, if you have to pick a weak link, and I'm not saying he's not good.
It's clearly
but
that.
he is the weak link. Everybody else is like all pro caliber.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he's not good and playing solid football.
Yeah, Sirianni said he's been good, he's been efficient, and those are true statements. Like, he's been good and efficient. I would have loved to hear him just simply say he's been exactly what we've asked him to do this year. Like, he's been that quarterback, because we are okay with that. We were okay with it with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert all season long.
Correct.
But in the playoffs,
Mahomes,
which is where we currently reside now, we're in the playoffs, the expectation of quarterback play ratchets up because of what you're talking about. There is going to be a moment, whether it's in this game, whether it's in a game in the future if they continue to win, where it's going to be Jalen Hurts has to make a play. He has to shoulder a bit more of the offense. And we haven't seen him do that consistently throughout the year. That's the question that's looming. I don't care. I don't care if you're an Eagles fan. I don't care if you're not an Eagles fan. You look at this team, you look at those stats, and they could be misleading, because the 29th in yards per game as far as passing, well, they've chosen to run the ball. And they've chosen to not do so much in the passing game. But when it's not a choice and you have to do it, can those numbers flip and it be Jalen Hurts won us a game?
yes, we've seen him do it. We've literally seen him do it. So again, can we stop this? Can we please stop this? It's just borderlining. You want to talk about gaslighting? Like, oh my gosh. I can't believe that this is what everyone's focusing on every single day this week. I feel like I've already made this video like 6 different times. And like I always say to you guys, like I don't want to keep repeating, and I also admit that like it's just inevitable. It's inevitable in sports talk, because we can only talk about these teams so much, and no one. And I don't want to do that all over again. I want to try to, like, you know, convey this in different ways. So we've never seen him do this. I keep losing my mic. Guys, I know I'm losing my mic. I promise you. I'm working to fix it. I promise. We've never seen Jalen, you know, they're trying to act like we've never seen Jalen Hurts be able to do this, but can you do this? And when you're in the playoffs, you're going to need to be able to do this. You're going to need to be able to do this. Why aren't they saying that about Jared Goff and his mobility? Why aren't they saying that? Everyone talks about how you need to have a quarterback who's mobile, who can escape pressure, etc. Why aren't they saying about Jared Goff? Jared Goff can't use his legs. Why aren't they saying that about Matthew Stafford? Stafford can't use his legs. He's not very mobile. So I don't understand. When we talk so much about some of these quarterbacks being superhero quarterbacks, 9 out of 10 times we talk about mobility. 9 out of 10 times. Now, occasionally, when you're a truly special passer of the ball, like a Joe Burrow, that makes you still a superhero. And I get that. But also, Nick has consistently said this about the Kansas City Chiefs. That you cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs with an immobile quarterback. That's why he's like, I hope we face Jared Goff in the Super Bowl. That's what he said. That you need to have a mobile quarterback. What is Jalen Hurts? Do you think Jalen Hurts would have, you know, that the Minnesota Vikings would have benefited having Jalen Hurts' mobility when Sam Darnold was being pressured like 27 times, sacked 9? Do you think that would have benefited him? Yeah, I think so. How about being able to run the RPO, the RRPO? Does that add a whole nother layer to the offense? How about this run game? Has the run game significantly improved with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley Yes, Jalen Hurts can offer many other things. Is his superpower passing the ball? No, it's not. That's not his brand of superpower. Can he pass the ball? Yes. Yes, he can. Is he this extraordinary elite thrower? No, he is not. But what do we got? Like 3 of those in the league right now? If that. So again, to make this the constant conversation, again, why aren't we talking about will Jared Goff's lack of mobility hurt the Detroit Lions? This is the playoffs. The pressure's on. We know what these defenses want to do, the pass rush. All of these top teams have special pass rushes. Well, will they be able to do it? Will they? Will it? Huh? Is that the conversation that I don't hear it? I'm not hearing it. I don't hear it at all. But yeah, with Jalen Hurts and throwing the ball, that's all we're hearing about. That's all we're hearing about. And it fundamentally does not make sense. If we were having this conversation about the other quarterbacks, I would understand. I would understand. That's the inconsistencies that I constantly try to point out. Why are we not having takes about, hey, will the Rams be able to handle the pass rush? Will they be able to handle Jalen Carter? We know that so-and-so can be when he's got a clean pocket, but when asked to avoid pressure, Matthew Stafford can't do it. And this is the playoffs. Why aren't we having those conversations? I don't understand. I don't understand. But with Jalen Hurts, it's all about his passing. And when we say that he hasn't, for him to be a bad passer, it just doesn't, it's not the reality. You realize that he's top 5 in highest percentage on target for advanced analytics? On target. When you remove all of the throwaways and spikes and all some of the other stuff, he's top 5. He's top 5 and most accurate. Again, I'm not trying to make the argument that Jalen Hurts is this special, elite, next level passer. What I'm saying is that he has a collection of skills and traits that when you put them all together, that's what makes Jalen Hurts his brand of special. That's what it comes down to. And to constantly downplay that because you're trying to, fit a narrative is where it doesn't make sense. And it's actually kind of perfect that we have right now Matthew Stafford. He's going up against Stafford, and I already referenced Goff as well. That we have 2 of those quarterbacks that are not mobile. They are not mobile at all. At all. And yet, we know in the modern era of the NFL, that's really, really important. And we know that in the playoffs, having a pass rush, having someone that can get to the quarterback. What do we say? What do we always say about? That's why he lost and got rocked in the Super Bowl. Was because they were able to get after him. How did they beat Sam Darnold on against the Lions and against the Rams? They got after him. That's how those teams lost. How did Matthew Stafford fare when his O-line was injured and they couldn't pass protect? Not good. Not good. What happens when you take the O-line away from a Lamar, away from a Josh Allen, and especially earlier in the career for Patrick Mahomes, then they're able to get by because of their mobility. How many times have you watched the Philadelphia Eagles play where they constantly point out this big run by Saquon was set up because of Jalen Hurts, because of the RRPO, because of the play action, because of all of these other various things. So we have to just stop downplaying. Again, if you're going to call out Jalen Hurts' ability to throw the ball, you still have to do it in the context and share all of the other things that he does really well. It has to be balanced. Otherwise, you're painting the picture that Jalen Hurts is this massive liability. I got news for you. Every single team in the history of the NFL would be better if you had a top 2 quarterback. Unless you have a top 2 quarterback, your team will be better with said top 2 quarterback. I confess, I do not think that Jalen Hurts is a top 2 quarterback. I know, I might have just lost a lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans. Again, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I do not think that Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFL. You're right. I do think that this team would be better with Patrick Mahomes. I know, I'm sorry, Philadelphia Eagles fans. I've been exposed. I think this team would be better with Patrick Mahomes. You're right. I'm sorry. I admit it. What I also admit is that Jalen Hurts outdueled and outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So I know what Jalen Hurts is capable of doing. So to constantly keep pulling him down. And this is where it ends up being a lose-lose situation. Because anything short of Jalen Hurts throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, it's then, yep, he's not good. But if he wins this game and throws for 175, they're like, nah, did they win despite Jalen Hurts? And then if he has a rough game, where they ask him to throw and it doesn't go well, it's proof. It's proof that he's not a good passer. When I promise you, I don't have all the stats right now in front of me, but I promise you, he's had more positive games. More, if we just looked at a very binary where this game was either a success or a failure, when Jalen Hurts was asked to throw, there was more successes than failures. Without a doubt. Even if you want to say, well, the Super Bowl was an outlier, the vast majority of his resume is not. So yes, does he have more positive passing games than negative than a Joe Burrow, for instance? No. But to act like it's so imbalanced that Jalen Hurts is just fundamentally a terrible thrower of the ball and that it is a constant liability is just absurd at this point. You can't be a quarterback and you can't last this long in the NFL if that was true. You just can't. Every defensive coordinator would be able to exploit that. How do we know that? Because that's what they do to backup quarterbacks. That's what they do to quarterbacks who last for like a couple years. That's what they do to quarterbacks who are first or second year players who don't last in the NFL, who don't get a second contract. They actually fundamentally get exposed and get exploited. That's why I said it was nonsense for Lamar Jackson when they said, oh, does Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers, have Lamar figured out? And it's like, no, because if that was the case, then every other defensive coordinator around the universe would be able to look at that and say, oh, this is what Mike Tomlin does. We're just going to do that. And it would be a repeat again and again and again. And we obviously know that that's not the case for Lamar. So if these things were fundamentally truth claims, Jalen Hurts would have been found out already. His career would be over. He would be a backup quarterback. He would be benched. Lots of things can be true at the same time. He is not an elite special passer. He is also not a liability for this team either. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles in this just story that just will never end? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here. I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.